Hi everyone, this is Captain of the Ring from the radio of the Dread Elves. First of all, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Captain of the Ring. I am a player of the Ninth Age, which is a wargaming type of game that takes place on a battlefield, which could be the table in your house, across which two armies are going to face each other, move across the battlefield, enter in contact and kill themselves by throwing pointy sticks at each other. Also, the game has some finesse because you have to capture some objectives that are important locations on the battlefield, but this is beyond the point. I'm going to introduce to you now the army that I'm going to play, and that is because I'm going to participate in a tournament in Bologna in a couple of months. I'm going to play the Dread Elves, which are a very interesting faction that I'm going to explain to you across this video, and I'm going to play a 4,500 points in this tournament. The main concept of the list is going to be around three main characters that are going to be the leaders of this force. This is why the army that I designed is called One Triumvirate to rule them all. We are going to start with the Dread Prince, which is the general and the main fighter in the force. My idea behind this character is that he's going to be the very best warrior on the battlefield, hands down. This is because I upgraded him with the lance for the offensive capabilities. This is because he's going to be very powerful when he charges someone in the front. He also has the Cleansing Light upgrade on the lance, which means that he's going to provide divine attacks and also negate any type of regeneration saves, which means that he's going to penetrate through several points of armor, and he's also going to give a hard time to anyone that possesses a word save or a regen save. Finally, for the offensive capabilities, he has the Mask of the Warcrow, which provides him with fear and also the unit in which he is going to reside, and also all the units that possess fear within 8 inches of him are going to reroll their ones to wound, which is going to synergize very well with another object in the list. Then again, for the offensive capabilities, he has a Dragon Staff, which is a one-use item for game. This means that he's going to throw a breath of fire against any units that come into his face and that try to block him from charging interesting objects on the battlefield. For the defense instead, he possesses a 1-up rerollable armor save, which is provided by his shield, his heavy armor, the Dibraptor, which he rides into battle, Dusk Forged, which is a power-up that allows him to reroll failed armor saves, and Basalt Infusion, which instead provides him 1 more point of armor save, which gives him the 1-up, and also gives him a 3-up ward save against fire shots. That is because having this amount of armor on top of yourself makes you very susceptible to alchemy types of spells, which work very well against armored units, were it not for the 3-up ward save provided by this small little trinket. His point cost is for 190 points, and his main goal is going to kill mostly anything on the battlefield, hopefully in style. Then we have my Silexian Officer, which is the battle standard bearer for the army. This means that he is going to be the rally point for all of my units across the battlefield. He is upgraded with a spear, so he is able to hold his own when someone charges him in the front. He is also upgraded with the Mastery of Slaughter, which allows him to do 2 wounds instead of 1, which is very useful against heroes and units that possess more wounds per model, and also allows him to have Lethal Strike, which completely negates any type of armor that the user possesses. So again, a very offensive choice. He's also upgraded with Answers of Mithril, which is a 2-up armor save, basically, so he's not as well kitted out as the general, but still he's a capable fighter on his own. His point cost is 315 points, and his main goal is going to be the line holder and to be the rally point, as we said before. As you can see, I follow the orders of Sauron, and my elves are definitely going to win by using his banners as an example. Then we have the final hero of the bunch. She's a Warlock Outcast, and in my mind she needs to be the strongest mage on the battlefield. For this reason, I decided to upgrade her as much as possible for the magical prowess. She is a Wizard Master, therefore she knows 4 spells from the cosmology lore. She has the light armor, which means that she has a very basic protection, but better than nothing. She has the Crystal Ball, which allows her to throw a +2 dispel bonus when she tries to dispel the first spell that the enemy casts in his magic phase. And finally, she has the Senran Scales, which is another bounce spell on top of the 4 ones that she already knows, which allows me to re-roll my to wound rolls against the enemy units. Her point cost is 500 points, and she's going to be the main support unit for all of my fighters, and she's also hopefully going to overwhelm the enemy's casters with her power. Then we move on to the core troops in the army. Here we have 25 Silexian Spears. They have full command, therefore they have a standard bearer, a champion and a musician, and this allows them to have all of the bonuses that count for moving troops, having bonuses for banners, and also having a champion that is able to throw a more stronger punch in the battle. Also, the standard bearer is upgraded with the Executioner's icon, which basically means that my Dread Spears here are going to have a +1 to wound in all the rounds of combat in which they face the enemy, and not just the first one, which is usually what the Dread Elves do. Their point cost is 440 points, and they're going to be the main infantry line in the army, holding against the enemy and hopefully providing ranks to break their morale. Then we move on to 15 Silexian Auxiliaries. This is the main shooting force of the army. They possess a musician, a standard bearer, and also they have the Flaming Standard upgrade, which means that once per game they can shoot fiery shots. This is very important because this is going to deal with any type of unit that has regeneration saves, negating them completely. Their point cost is 315 points, and they're probably going to be the personal guard of the Warlock Outcast. Their goal is going to be to soften up the enemy troops before the fighters can come in and finish them off, and also to provide covering fire against the enemy's shooters. Finally, the last entry in the core troops are the 2 units of 5 Dark Riders. Their point cost is 190 points, and their main goal is going to be a chaffing type of unit. This means that they are going to throw themselves and to sacrifice themselves for the greater good by blocking the important enemy units and allowing me to pick my fights and go in for the kill much more efficiently. Moving on to the special choices, here we have 5 Warlock Acolytes. They also possess a champion, and so their point cost is 340 points. Having a champion means that they are a Wizard Conclave, and so they can also cast spells, in addition to the Warlock Outcast that we saw before. This means that they are a hybrid type of unit, because they have some interesting combat capabilities, being able to have 2 attacks each and also with a quite good strength, but also they can throw spells to power up my own forces or to debuff the enemy's lines. Then we have 5 Dread Knights, which is the very heavy cavalry in the army. They are the main impact force, having lances as the general. They have full command for the whole range of options for moving, fighting, and so on. And they also have the Eye of the Gorgon upgrade on the banner, which means that they are going to do some few little types of damage against units that enter in contact with them, but also this forces the enemy to reroll their discipline checks, which is very important, and in this way they might be much more able to punch through the enemy lines just by sheer amount of damage. Their point cost is 380 points, and they might be the personal guard of the prince in this case. Then we have 20 Obsidian Guards. This is the most elite type of infantry that I'm going to play in the tournament. They are a very efficient type of unit, and that is because they have a huge amount of attacks with a very high accuracy. They have full command, again for having all the options for movement and so on, and they have the Banner of Speed, allowing them to be a little bit faster with having +1 movement to their basic numbers. This means that they're going to be a little faster compared to other elves, and also much faster compared to all the other infantry units in the rest of the tournament. Their point cost is 530 points, and they're also probably going to be the personal guard of the Battle Standard Bearer. Then we move on to 2 Hunting Chariots. These guys are very interesting, not only because they cost only 190 points, but also because they can carry harpoons on their backs and that they're able to shoot big targets by softening them up and also reducing their movement and speed, which again helps with the idea of picking and choosing our fights carefully. Then, the second to last piece is the Divine Altar, upgraded with the Effigy of Dread power-up, which costs 200 points. This is a very important central piece in the army, and that is because it provides the Fear Bubble of 24 inches to all other Elven units in the army. This is very important because it combines with the Mask of the Warcrow that we saw before, allowing all the units with fear that are close to the general to reroll their ones to wound in combat. Also, this type of piece provides me with 3 Veil tokens, which are going to be used to generate more magical power, giving some options to my mages to cast more powerful spells or to just throw even more magical power at the enemy. This piece has one weakness, which is that it cannot move across the battlefield, so once you place it in his position, he is not able to move and to move along the bubble of fear. This means that positioning this piece is truly one of the most important aspects of the army, and this means that I will have to take my time choosing when to place such an object. The final entry in the army is the Mist Leviathan, which is a big old monster costing 230 points. Despite of his dimensions, the Mist Leviathan is not designed to actually win fights on his own, and that is because he doesn't have the best profile across the other monsters. However, it does have an interesting role because of the mist bubble that he provides to Elven infantry units. This means that if someone tries to shoot at the units protected by this mist power, they're going to suffer some inconveniences. That is because they're not going to be able to aim as well, and so their shots are going to be lost in the mist. So his goal is going to provide this initial protection, and then to try and be some type of disturbance force by blocking the enemy's line of sight, and also to be basically a big target that needs to be shot at. So this was it for my army specifically, and I'm going to tell you the positives and negatives that I can find about the army and also the Dread Elves as a faction. Generally, Elves are a very fragile type of army. That is because the Elves are not that tough on their own, and they do not have the best protection when it comes to armor or other saves. This, combined with the fact that the Elves are a very elite type of army, means that they're going to have a small amount of troops, and every loss truly counts. Every life that we are able to save needs to be invested very carefully in the next combat rounds, because otherwise we're going to just lose by the sheer amount of numbers that the enemies might be able to throw at us. Finally, the Elves are a very elite force, so they are able to crush the enemy when they get into combat, and they need to do this quickly before the enemy can answer back. In order to do this, my idea is to try and position my troops in the best way possible in order to pick my fights and charge with overwhelming force into one single point to destroy a unit and then move on to the next one. This means that we need to engage in combat only when we have the best odds or when we are sure that we are going to crush the enemy, because otherwise our Elven troops are going to be stuck in a prolonged combat and the enemy might actually come around, flank us, and kill us because of our fragility. So this was it for the army presentation, and I'm going to give you a little spoiler of the next steps of this channel. Next time I'm going to publish a battle report that I have already played with a friend of mine that is going to also participate in the tournament of Bologna. He plays the Vampire Covenant, which is an army of vampires and skeletons, so undead. It's going to be an interesting fight. As the army of the undead led by powerful vampire sorcerers approaches, I hope they are not able to expect our welcome in our lands. So thank you again for seeing this video, and I hope I can see you again in the near future. Bye bye!